Loving relationships with his devotees, Krishna by his own will can forget. Queen Kunti was expressing in her glorification of Krishna. Krishna is feared by fear personified. And yet when Mother Yashoda held up a little stick, it was just a twig. And she had absolutely no intention even touching Krishna with that twig. And Krishna knows everyone's intentions. He's the Paramatma in Yashoda Mai's heart. He knows what she's thinking. And she picks it up and she says, Krishna, you are so naughty. And Krishna runs away. And not only is he running away, but as he's running, he's crying. And then she catches him. And she said, Krishna, why are you doing this? So you're playing with monkeys and you're and you're breaking butter pots and you're making a mess of your own house. Why are you doing? And Krishna's pleading with her, crying, please don't be mad don't be angry with me. I'm sorry, I won't do it again. And our acharyas explain, he's not faking it, as we may say. He's actually thinking. He's so much under the beautiful experience of Yashoda's love that he's actually afraid of her. But it's not like our fear. His fear is he's just totally captured by her love. And Kunti is thinking, he's afraid of Yashoda. And this is incredible. Because here, Krishna has no fear of Chanura and Mushtika. But he's afraid of Yashoda. Yashoda Mai didn't have any thunderbolt limbs or mountainous arms. She was just a very delicate, motherly gopi, a lady. And here are the champion wrestlers under Kamsa. Krishna has no fear. He's laughing at Chanura and Mushtika. And he's crying and trembling, and his lips are quivering in the presence of Yashoda Mai. This is rasa. This is the sweetness of loving exchange. And the ladies of Mathura are remembering these beautiful pastimes of Vrindavan. What a wonderful place Vrindavan is. Yes, Kamsa sent asuras there, but the Brijabasis, they hardly even saw those things. The gopis rarely saw Krishna with demons. They would just hear the stories from the gopas when they would come back from the pastures. They would meet Krishna at night and dance with him and sing with him and play with him. Yashoda Mai and Nanda Maharaj, they were feeding him and massaging him and dressing him. How beautiful. The Brajavasis are simply playing with Krishna and enjoying with Krishna. What a beautiful place that is. And here, this is what Mathura is. We have to see him fighting with wrestlers. They were so much in anguish. And as they were talking among themselves, when Krishna and Balaram would leave in the morning with their cows, they'd play their flutes. And gopis would all come running out of their houses and just watch Krishna and Balaram leaving for the pastures. And how beautiful that was. Because Krishna and Balaram and the gopas were so happy, so playful. They would be playing their flutes, and their friends would be blowing on horns, and they would be joking and laughing and decorating themselves. And all the cows would be smiling and dancing with Krishna. And this is how they began their day every day. And then throughout the whole day, they're just immersed in meditating on the happiness of Krishna. And then in the evening, as they were coming back from the pastures, Krishna Balaram would play their flutes again, and all the gopis would come out again and see Krishna returning. How beautiful. After playing all day and taking care of his loving cows. And they were so much missing Krishna in separation. That separation immersed their consciousness in remembering his beauty, his smile, his leelas, his love. And Krishna knew that. And as he'd play the flute and come back, their eyes like the chakora bird looking at the full moon, or like the chatak bird waiting for the rains to come. With such unblinking glances, they would be looking upon Krishna. And Krishna would be smiling. And he'd be playing the flutes just for them. This is Krishna, Rasa Bihari, the connoisseur of perfect love. Every cow, every calf, every bull, every peacock, every parrot, every gopa, every gopi, everyone, every tree, every flower. When Krishna plays the flute, everyone thinks he's playing for me. And it's not that they're just thinking this. He actually is. He is playing only for you. Now, if everyone comes together later on and says he was playing only for me, somebody says, no, he was playing only for me. Somebody else is saying, no, he was playing only for me, because only means no one else. Yes? It's a really nice word, only. But Krishna could play only for everybody. Individually, personally. He's the source of all love, prem. You see, the word love has a certain understanding in our minds according to our experiences in our life and according to how we philosophically study these things. But the word prem cannot really be translated with the word love, although it can be, because there's no real description of prem in material language. Prem is the perfect ecstasy of the sweetness of Krishna's love for us and how we respond by loving Krishna. It's inconceivable. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said Prema Pumartha Mahan, that the highest goal is prem, this ecstatic love, you can only understand prem when you have prem. And you can never have prem unless by Sri Radha's grace it's given to us. And how could something be given to us when it's inherently within us? Nityasiddha Krishna prema sajja kapunoy sravanadi sudhichiti koriya yudoy. This prem is our nature eternally. We've never been without it. It can never be taken away from us. It's just that we forget it because we're so distracted due to the cloud of illusion. Birth after birth. So if something is eternally ours, how can it be given to us? This bhakti lata bija, this seed of love is within us. So how is it given by the Guru? Does that make sense? It doesn't make sense. But at the same time, it makes sense. And at the same time, it really doesn't make sense. But that's Krishna. Because without grace, without Krishna's grace, it cannot be awakened. Even though we have it, we have no access to it. Unless Krishna, Sri Radha, with the key of their grace, opens the treasure chest of our hearts to reveal it to us. No matter how much charity we give, no matter how many austerities we perform, no matter how punctual we are for every temple program, and no matter how diligent and concentrated we are in our japa and our kirtan and our meditation and everything else we do, that's not enough. All of our devotional practices, like Kupja, she made her devotional offering, but ultimately it wasn't her offering that made her straight and awakened her love. It was Krishna's grace. But it's by our japa, by our kirtan, by our punctuality, by all of our activities, our charity, whatever, if it pleases Krishna, then by Sri Radha's grace, we become straight, we become whole, and our love awakens. So when Krishna's glancing, every gopi is thinking he's glancing upon me. And what is Krishna's glance? All of the philosophy of the Upanishads, all of the philosophies of every philosopher that ever lived in this world cannot fathom what that momentary glance is like. Because when Krishna casts his glance, even if it's for a moment, according to the Vedic calculation, a moment means 1/12 of a second. Now, as you're sitting there, how many 12ths of seconds are going by? And can you even grasp onto? Can you consciously grasp onto it? As soon as you try to, it's gone. It's the way time is. Okay, I'm going to really be here now. I'm going to be in the present moment. I'm going to be in this 1/12 of a second. But as soon as you just fix your mind on that 12th of a second, about 100 of them have already passed. And the one you're trying to fix, that is already long gone. That's how the world works. But when Krishna, because this is Nitya Lila, when Krishna glances, even for a 12th of a second, his love, his appreciation for who we are, who we've always been, his recognition of all the pains that we may be going through to serve him, to love him, everything is completely communicated. With that 12th of a second, Krishna can fully express his appreciation and love for us and everything about us. And his infinite love for us. That's Krishna's glance. And he does it in such a childlike, spontaneous, natural way. It's not like, he's looking at everybody like, bzz, bzz, bzz. He's just playing with his friends and laughing with his friends, and it might just be, he's not even really looking at you in the sense that he's like, going to everybody. While he's doing everything else, playing his flute and joking and dancing, he's just in such a natural way, his glance connects with everyone. And in that moment, completely fulfills the soul, the heart of the soul. This is Vrindavan. And here in Mathura, instead of seeing Krishna coming from with pastures, dancing, playing music, all of his friends, we see him, he's locked up with Chanura. And their knees are against each other, and their fists are against each other, and Chanura is picking up Krishna and throwing him on the ground, and Krishna's throwing Chanura to the ground, and they're looking at each other, and their eyes are all red with anger, and they're so big, and they're so hard, and Krishna's so little and soft, and how is he going to survive? They're in so much anguish. And Devaki and Vasudeva, they're sitting and they're hearing the ladies of Mathura, what they're saying. And they enter into such a distressed condition. Because as devotees talk about their love for Krishna, it affects our hearts. Devaki and Vasudeva, they became so afraid and so ashamed. They were thinking that what a mistake we made. We should have not allowed Akrura to go to Vrindavan. Kamsa sent Akrura to Vrindavan. But we should have somehow or other done anything, even if it meant our lives, we should have stopped them from coming. How could we have permitted being part of this most sinful experience of seeing Krishna wrestling against these monsters, these demons? And when Krishna, even though he was right in the middle of this wrestling match, he could hear all the words of the ladies of Mathura. And he could feel the thoughts of Vasudeva and Devaki. And he decided, he was perspiring. And his perspiration was his reciprocation of love. On one level, his perspiration was making Chanura and Mustika more exciting, thinking, just see how we're causing them so much distress. But it was also awakening this Vatsalya, this motherly love among all the ladies. This Vatsalya Bhav, or this worrying about Krishna, is actually intimately interwoven in the various relationships with Krishna. Even the cowherd boyfriends, they're purely sakya-ras, but when they see Krishna in a difficult situation, they fear for him in their friendly way. Just like in a prana-pratishta, or the installation of deities. I know in my own life, when the priests pick up Srimati Radharani, or pick up Krishna, to carry them to the bathing place, or then to pick them up and carry them from the bathing place to the altar, because they're coming in these beautiful forms which seem materially so vulnerable, yes? We look at their beautiful limbs and we know if any of the pujaris slip, then Krishna's limbs will be broken. Yes? And the pujaris are just kind of people like us. They sometimes slip. Especially when there's all kinds of ghee and honey and milk all over the place. They're lifting deities. And then they bring them on the altar and they have to put them in little holes and everything. And it's happened. So I remember at Govardhan Eco Village when they lifted Shri Shri Radha Vrindavan Bihari, even though they weren't named at the time, they were lifting them to bring them to their beds. And it's so beautiful, but so much anxiety. Because they're carrying them. And there's so many of them. Like 4 people carrying each deity. And if any one of those 4 slip or move in a wrong way, everybody else. And Krishna is so vulnerable. We're praying so intensely. Please, Krishna, just get him to that bed. So painful to see them being carried because they could break. Just get them to the bed. Get them to the bed. And then when they're laying in the bed, oh, so nice, so beautiful. But then anxiety that tomorrow they have to lift them from the bed and they have to bring them to the bathing. And then all these people are going to be bathing. And what if somebody drops the conch, all these different people, what if somebody drops the conch shell on their heads? And really, too much anxiety. But at the same time, it's so blissful. We're seeing Krishna enjoying, and at the same time, we're worrying. And then after that, they lift them, bring them to the altar. And I just praying, Shri Radharani, just please protect Krishna as he's being brought. And Krishna, please protect Radharani. But Krishna's indestructible. Chanura and Mushtika could not harm a single limb of Krishna. Yes? But yet, Pujari slips and it can harm his limbs. This is Krishna's inconceivable nature. But it's all for the purpose of attracting our love. Vasudeva and Devaki are so worried. And Krishna understood their worry. And he heard the ladies talking. They were worrying so much. So Krishna decided, enough with these wrestlers. I can't put my devotees in so much distress, even though I purposely put them in distress. I put them in distress to increase their love, but I have to also relieve their distress because of their love. So then Krishna effortlessly, he grabbed Chanura by his arms and whirled him around in the air. Just, and then threw him in the ground. And Chanura was liberated. The word liberated is a very deep, profound, philosophical way of saying he was dead. Because when Krishna does that, he gives you eternal life. Yes? And then Balaram is with Mushtika, and Balaram, his eyes are very red, and Mushtika's eyes are very red, and they're looking at each other, and they're just crushing their limbs against each other, and they're squeezing each other, and then Balaram just takes his open hand Didn't even make a fist. Just took his open hand and gave Mustika one slap. Mustika was liberated. And liberation means what? No, he gained eternal life. But the doorway to enter that eternal life was that he was dead. Toshala and Sala and all these other big wrestlers, they couldn't tolerate what happened. This was an insult to their whole prestige as wrestlers. So they attacked Krishna and Balaram just gave them all liberation. And when all these most powerful wrestlers were laying on the wrestling mats, liberated, Kamsa completely lost all control. You know, he was sitting on the throne watching, like in, I guess, in the cricket games, some world championship, the prime minister has a special seat and the president of the nation has a special seat. So Kamsa was in the imperial throne on a high level with the very, very special guards all around him. And when he saw all the wrestlers dead, Kuvalaya Pita dead, the guards, his bow broken, he just totally lost control of his mind and stood up and started screaming. And when Kamsa screams, it's really like the roaring of lions, many lions, with such anger, with such cruelty and evil intent. He screamed out that, "Drive these foolish boys out of the city." And Vasudeva and Devaki, kill them. And my father Ugrasena, kill him. He ordered this immediately. And when Krishna saw how Kamsa was about to kill Vasudeva and Devaki, kill Ugrasena, and he was insulting them, he was calling everybody fools, he was screaming out that Krishna, Balaram, he said, "These foolish, evil boys, drive them out of our city." He was calling them evil. You see, the world is a reflection of our own mind. It's like a mirror. He wasn't just saying it. He really felt that they were evil, because he was so egoistically focused on the universe being centered around him. Anything that was against him was evil. He was so evil, but he didn't see himself as evil. He saw nice people as evil, because for him, evil meant they're not satisfying my desires. So as he was giving orders and all of Krishna's devotees were about to be killed, Krishna reciprocated with them. Like a flash, Krishna, who was down in the wrestling mat, he jumped to where Kamsa was sitting. A high platform. And the people of Mathura couldn't even see Krishna jumping up because it just happened so fast. He jumped up, but Kamsa saw him. And when Kamsa saw Krishna jumping toward him, Kamsa stood up, drew his sword, had his shield, and was ready to fight. He was totally prepared for this momentous occasion where he was face to face, ready to do battle with Krishna personally. He had already sent so many of associates. Now it was one-on-one. It's you and me. And he had total conviction that with his sword he was going to destroy Krishna. And Krishna effortlessly. Krishna is so wonderful. Kamsa standing with his sword and his shield like a giant mountain ready to fight. And Krishna knocks Kamsa's crown off. His king crown. Just knocked it off and then pulled his hair. That's the way the cowherd boys fight. They pull each other's hair. He pulled Kamsa's hair and then picked up Kamsa and threw him all the way down from his high imperial seat down to the wrestling mat. And Kamsa just hit the ground. Now Kamsa was so powerful, how could that affect him? He was a mystic yogi. You can throw him from another planet, it's not going to hurt him. But Krishna threw him down, and he was finished. He was liberated. Then Krishna jumped down really fast. He jumped down from the imperial box throne platform where Kamsa had his throne. And Krishna understood that everybody was watching, and all the ladies, and Vasudeva and Devaki and Nanda Maharaj was there with the cowherd boys. Oh, I'm going to tell you one other thing. I'm going to rewind for a moment. Now that you have computers, you don't have rewinding anymore. It used to be. But I'm going to go back. Krishna really knows how to get emotions out of people. After Krishna and Balaram liberated Chandra Mushtaka and all the other wrestlers, Krishna called the cowherd boys down from their special booth to come down in the wrestling arena with him. And all the Brijabasi cowherd boys came down, and Krishna and the cowherd boys started dancing and singing and laughing to celebrate Krishna's winning the match. That's what really got Kamsa upset. Because you see, Kamsa had the best musicians in his whole kingdom who were playing music. And the whole purpose of that music was to celebrate Krishna and Balaram being killed. And here, that music was playing, and Krishna, Balaram, and all these little cowherd boys are just dancing as if they were in the pastures of Vrindavan, dancing and playing and singing and jumping on each other and embracing each other and just dancing and celebrating. And the inhabitants of Mathura are watching this. And Kamsa was outraged. Krishna pulled him by the hair, threw him down, and then just so that nobody would have any more anxieties about Krishna, when Krishna jumped down from that high platform, he landed right on the body of Kamsa, so no one would think he hurt himself. And then, according to Krishna book, he straddled on Kamsa's body, and with his beautiful little hand, he started hitting Kamsa like thunderbolts. And Kamsa was liberated. But Kamsa caused so much harm, so much fear, so much death to so many people that Krishna could read people's hearts. They knew how infallible Kamsa appeared. So Krishna, just to assure everyone that you are all now free from Kamsa, he effortlessly started pulling Kamsa around on the ground, just dragging him here and there like a piece of rag. He was just dragging him here and there, and then threw him. And everybody celebrated. Everybody. Except Kamsa's wives. And the wrestlers' wives. But they became self-realized souls. First they cried, oh, we have lost our lives, we have lost our husbands. But then they were saying but Krishna and Balaram are the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and why our husbands were such fools. Of course, if you're against God, you're going to be defeated. So they understood. And while everybody in Mathura practically was celebrating, they're finally freed from the tyranny of Kamsa. And they're all seeing the beauty and the grace and feeling the love and the mercy of Krishna. Vasudeva and Devaki. They stood with their hands folded. Because please enter into this mood of Vasudeva and Devaki. They were terrorized by Kamsa for years and years. They were shackled, imprisoned, their children were killed, they were constantly being harassed. They knew the powers of Kamsa. And here, Krishna and Balaram, their little boys, had just killed him. So they understood that Krishna and Balaram is Lord Narayan, is the Supreme Absolute Truth, is God. So they weren't thinking themselves as his mother and father anymore. They were afraid to approach him like that. They were just worshiping him and honoring him and standing like statues in such awe of Krishna and Balaram. When Krishna and Balaram saw them like that, they didn't like it. Because although they were in ecstasy, they wanted to give them a deeper, more intimate ecstasy of loving them as children. Krishna covered them with the Yogamaya potency. And then Krishna and Balaram came right up to Vasudeva and Devaki and bowed their heads. They bowed down and touched the feet of their mother and father and put it on their heads. Now, that's not what God does to people. But when God takes the role of such an intimate child, this is how he reciprocates. And Vasudeva and Devaki became so overwhelmed with this Vatsalya Bhav, this parental affection, they sat down and lifted up Krishna and Balaram and put them on their laps and embraced them again and again and again. Krishna and Balaram were begging forgiveness from Vasudeva and Devaki. You had to endure so much difficulty because of us. And we left you from our earliest childhood to live somewhere else, and we were enjoying our life in so many ways in Vrindavan, but meanwhile, you were in prison, suffering. They asked forgiveness, but now we're here for you, and we will do anything to pacify you. After all, a parent, this is what Krishna Balaram were saying, a parent gives us birth. A parent sustains us and keeps us alive and gives us pleasure when we're in the most helpless times of our life. If we don't appreciate that, if we don't reciprocate with that, then we have lost all sense of Dharma. In this way, Krishna and Balaram completely gave themselves to Vasudeva and Devaki. But while they were doing this, Nanda Maharaj was not there. Because after Krishna was victorious and was dancing with the cowherd boys, and after he liberated Kamsa, when he first approached Vasudeva and Devaki, Nanda Maharaj and the older cowherd men all went back to their little settlement where their ox carts and everything had a little circle in the outskirts of the city. So he didn't see this reciprocation with Vasudeva and Devaki. Because Nanda Maharaj was thinking, everybody knew that Balaram was Vasudev's son. But Nanda Maharaj, everybody in Vrindavan knew that Krishna is Yashoda and Nanda's son. Then Krishna called for all the Vrishnis and the Yadus and the Andakas and all of the people who were running away and hiding from Kamsa. He called them all back to Mathura. Now Kamsa is gone, we could live like a family together once again. And I'm here with you. And they all came back, and it was wonderful, wonderful celebration. Krishna and Balaram approached Nanda Maharaj and said, it is our duty to remain in Mathura for a few more days. You should go back to Braj Bhumi. Nanda Maharaj was like a statue. To go back without Krishna? No one will have any faith in me as their leader anymore. What will Yashoda Mai think? I promised her I would come back with you. How can I go? But ultimately, whatever Krishna's will is their will. But Krishna said, I will return. He promised, I will return. And on the basis of that promise, Nanda Maharaj was willing to go back to Vrindavan, carrying Krishna in the core of his heart. But Krishna was already in the core of the hearts of every Brijavasi. But he was willing to go back without Krishna in form. Krishna promised, I will return. And our great acharyas explain, why would Krishna do that? And they give so many analogies. One is that the Nanda, Jashoda, the Gopas, the Gopis, their prem, their ecstatic love is like the purest gold. And when you put gold in fire, it doesn't ruin the gold. It only makes the gold shine brighter and brighter and brighter and brighter. And by putting them in the fire of separation, it only increased their love more and more and more. This Vipralamba Bhav, this love was shining brighter and brighter. It was becoming ever expanding in their separation from Krishna. The loving reciprocation Krishna was having in the hearts of the Gopas and the Gopis of Vrindavan in that separation was far greater than even if he was personally, physically present. But what kept them alive was only these three words: I will return. And they had total faith in Krishna's love for them. Whatever they may have said, whatever they may have done in their loving relationships with Krishna in separation, they knew Krishna will return. Thank you very much.